The hallway was nearly empty, washed in the dim glow of flickering fluorescent lights, when Daniel spotted her. He had just finished mopping the last stretch of the corridor, the handle of the mop leaning heavy against his tired shoulder. His shift as a school janitor was nearly over, and all he wanted was to go home to his little girl, tuck her in, and hear about the crayon drawings she'd taped to the refrigerator. But then he heard it, the quick, uneven shuffle of footsteps, almost frantic, echoing against the walls. And then came the voice. "Don't follow me," she snapped. The words were sharp, slicing through the silence. A girl, maybe 17, 18, stormed past him, her arms folded tight across her chest like a shield. Her eyes, though, betrayed something deeper, fear. He wasn't supposed to care. He wasn't supposed to get involved. He was just the janitor, the man who kept the floors clean and the trash bins empty. But he couldn't help noticing the way her backpack hung slightly open, the glint of something inside, something that wasn't school supplies. Daniel froze. His heart began to hammer as recognition dawned on him. It was a bottle. A small, orange pill bottle with a label scratched away. For a moment, the air seemed to grow heavier. He knew what he was looking at, and it chilled him to the bone. He thought of his daughter, Sophie. Thought of the nights she cried herself to sleep after her mother left, how helpless he'd felt holding her, whispering that everything would be okay when he wasn't even sure it would be. He knew the look of despair when he saw it, because he'd lived through it. The girl's voice came again, this time more brittle, like a fragile pane of glass about to shatter. "I said don't follow me." But Daniel did. Not out of nosiness. Not because he wanted to play the hero. He followed because something in her eyes told him that if he didn't, she might not be here tomorrow. He trailed her quietly, keeping just enough distance not to spook her. She pushed through the side door and out into the chilly night. The schoolyard was deserted, shadows stretching long across the cracked pavement. She walked faster, almost running now, but the tremor in her stride gave her away. "Hey," Daniel called gently, not wanting to startle her. His voice carried the same calm tone he used when Sophie had her nightmares. "You dropped something." She spun around, her face pale under the streetlight. "I told you to leave me alone." Her voice cracked on the last word, like it wasn't anger at all, but pain. Daniel lifted his hand slowly, revealing the bottle he had picked up when it slipped halfway out of her bag. He hadn't wanted to, but he couldn't ignore it. "This yours?" he asked softly. Her lips trembled. The fury drained from her expression, replaced by something far more vulnerable, terror. "You don't understand," she whispered, her arms wrapping tighter around herself as if she were trying to disappear. "Nobody does." Daniel's throat ached. He stepped closer, but not too close. "Try me." The girl's knees buckled, and she sank onto the curb, burying her face in her hands. Daniel crouched a few feet away, the rough pavement pressing against his knees. He didn't speak. He just waited, the way he'd learned patience when Sophie couldn't find the words for her grief. Minutes ticked by. Finally, she lifted her head, mascara streaked across her cheeks. "It's too much. School. Home. All of it. Nobody cares if I'm gone." Daniel felt his chest tighten. He thought of the nights he'd stayed up wondering if Sophie would be better off without him, if he was enough. He knew that hollow place she was speaking from. "I'd care," he said, his voice steady. "I don't even know your name, but I'd care. And so would Sophie, my little girl. She's 7. She lost her mom. If she lost me too," he swallowed hard. "She'd think the whole world gave up on her." The girl's breathing slowed. She blinked at him, as if unsure whether to believe him. "You're just a janitor," she murmured. He smiled faintly. "Yeah. That's me. Just a janitor. But sometimes it's the people you least expect who notice when you're hurting." The silence between them was heavy, but not suffocating anymore. She hugged her knees tighter, whispering, "I don't want to feel like this anymore." Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He placed it on the ground between them. "Then let me help. You don't have to do this alone. We can call someone. A counselor, maybe even just a friend you trust. Or I can just sit here with you until you're ready." Her fingers hovered over the phone, trembling. "What if they judge me?" "They won't," Daniel said gently. "And even if they do, I won't. You've already been brave enough to stay. That's the hardest part." Her eyes brimmed with fresh tears, but this time they weren't hopeless. They were scared, yes, but also searching for something to hold on to. And in that moment, she reached out, not for the phone, but for him. Just a small, hesitant touch of her hand against his. Daniel squeezed her hand lightly, the way he squeezed Sophie's when she was afraid of the dark. "You're not invisible," he whispered. "And you're not alone." The girl nodded slowly, finally taking the phone. With shaky hands, she dialed a number. Her voice broke as she spoke, but Daniel stayed by her side, anchoring her with his quiet presence. By the time the call ended, the night air didn't feel so heavy anymore. She wiped her cheeks and gave him a faint, almost disbelieving smile. "You really saved me tonight," she said softly. Daniel shook his head. "You saved yourself. I just reminded you that you're worth saving." When her older brother arrived minutes later, his face etched with panic and relief, Daniel stepped back. The girl hugged him tightly, whispering something in his ear. Before leaving, she turned back once more, her eyes locking with Daniel's. "Thank you," she mouthed. Daniel watched them go, his heart swelling with a bittersweet ache. He knew he might never see her again, but he also knew he didn't need to. Sometimes the greatest acts of kindness were the ones that didn't get remembered by names, but by the fact that they happened at all. Later that night, when Daniel tucked Sophie into bed, she asked why he was smiling. He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Because today, someone got another chance." And as Sophie drifted off to sleep, Daniel lay awake, grateful for the simple truth that had guided him: the power of humanity wasn't in grand gestures or titles. It was in noticing, in caring, in stepping forward when someone whispered, "Don't follow me," but you knew, deep down, that you had to. That night, a janitor saved a life, not because it was his job, but because it was his humanity.